Welcome back to the Daughters of the Moon podcast. We're grateful that you could join us for another week.
We sure are.
And we're excited today. We have Sevante Wulkan. She calls herself a unique combo of woo and world, a fourth generation intuitive who played with tarot cards and oracle decks when other kids were playing crazy eights. She found herself pulled to a science in college, specifically food sciences, adding science geek to her resume. Now in over 35 countries with two food healing oracle decks identifying the spiritual essence of plant-based foods widely sought by intuitives for readings designed for improving emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual wellness inspired from the food healing oracle deck. And with the launch of a high vibrational wellness intuitive healing therapies to nurture your body temple, she has gathered 24 other leaders beside herself to tell the powerful, traumatic, illuminating, and inspiring stories while introducing the innovative healing therapies that resulted from mastering their own healing. Each chapter offers a section called Tool with specific directions on how the reader can implement a technique to elevate higher vibrational wellness. So, welcome, Savante. We're excited for you to be
Yeah,
here.
thank you. I was gonna hold this up as you were explaining it, but
Oh,
anyway,
yes.
that is the book that you were just talking about, High Vibrational Wellness.
Very
Yeah,
beautiful. So can
yeah.
you tell us a little bit about your journey of getting here and how you really got into, doing food and the consciousness behind food with the spirituality?
Yes. Well, I think it was destined for me to do that. Definitely preordained and past life related. I come from a family of intuitives. And when I was very, very young, my mom was getting a reading at our local metaphysical store. And the reader had looked down and said to her, looking at me, "Did you know your daughter died of food poisoning in a past life? And it would not be surprising if she ended up doing something in food to kind of balance out the karma in this life." And I always, I didn't have recognition of that early on, but I was told that later. But what was interesting is that I was always super obsessed with like food in terms of preservation. I was like a complete germaphobe and hypochondriac. Like, does that food have mold? And check the expiration date. And that doesn't taste proper. I was just always having kind of like aversions to food, thinking, something was gonna make me sick, only to learn that later that was sort of part of this backstory of me. And then I ended up going to college and getting a degree in food science and dietetics and nutrition, and started to kind of learn the science of how food works and how to preserve it and how to just everything about food. And meanwhile, I was still uh, living a very spiritual life, and I ended up working for Hollywood's top vegetarian chef at that time. This was like 30 years ago. And they were very spiritual and started to, show me how people are praying over their food and raising the vibration. And if there was an argument, they would leave the room and, make sure the food was always at its highest vibration. And I just sort of really resonated with that as well. And then for decades, I've just been a true foodie and working with chefs and being a chef, and always interested in food healing, became a food healer and a intuitive reader. And then it wasn't until about, now we're talking, many decades later, lifelong learning of these things, that it occurred to me that it was time to make my own oracle deck. And I had always been wanting to do an oracle deck. And at the time, I had another colleague who had an interest in the same things I did, and I was taking a food healing course, advanced food healing training, about 5 years ago, and finished that course. And it was like, yeah, let's see what we can do with food. And then food started talking to me. I started like asking Mother Nature. I started asking spirit, angels, archangels, ascended master. I kind of asked everybody to really kind of show me what the greater meaning is around food. And all of us as spiritual beings, what do we need to know or what don't we know yet? And sort of all those questions were answered, and I started channeling what blueberry is and what strawberry and what's Brussels sprouts. And, you know, I didn't expect that to happen, but it happened. And anyways, the Food Healing Oracle deck was born in 2020, right in the middle of COVID. And people just absolutely gravitated towards it. People were so nervous at that time because of COVID, and it was just what was going on and how do we protect ourselves. And it seems like Spirit had a great plan because that's how it started. And certifications rolled out after that. And then 2.5 years later, people said, we want more food. So a second deck was made in 2022. And kind of the rest is history. Several books later, and teachings and certifications. And here I am talking to you and many others.
That's amazing. Well, I think
Yeah.
it's really interesting, and I loved what you said about people when they're eating and if there's arguments or there's like an upset in the room. Can you talk a little bit about that? Just of how that vibration of what your mood is has an impact on the food that you're eating?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a spiritual show. We're energetic beings. We live in the world of spirit and frequency and energy and vibration. And there are vibratory scales that we can live by. Abraham Hicks has one. God, there's just so many out there. And I really am a big proponent of understanding energy. For instance, if we have um, an angry argument with someone, our vibration is lower. And Dr. David Hawkins has a scale as well that I really relate to. If we are in anger and rage and jealousy and even grief, we're operating, let's just give that 100, score of 100. But if we're operating more in love and joy and peace and sort of these high vibrational sort of Buddha Gandhi energies, those are like say 800. And so we kind of want to move our energies up that scale to raise the vibration of ourselves. That's where we can attract more love, more harmony, more energy. And we have the ability to look at food as those levels too. So if like say love is in those 800 levels or joy is in those, what if those words were assigned to food? And then those foods became the love and the joy. And we were eating love and joy, and we were eating peace. It's like we're eating the frequency with intention for the body. And there is some science to it too. It's not just all the spirit of it. So there really is a method. In fact, Dr. Emoto, I don't know if either of you know Dr. Emoto,
Yeah,
Consciousness of Water?
yeah.
Yeah, so Dr. Emoto looked under a crystalline microscope for those watching this or listening and wrote the word love on a bottle and then wrote the word hate on a bottle of water and then looked at the water in its crystalline structure. And love was in perfect crystalline form, and hate was completely distorted and a mess. And I'm thinking, well, gosh, food is mostly made out of water. So if that is the crystalline structures with water, with a word on water, what if I signed a word on food? And that's how the Oracle decks came into being, that these foods took on this energy. So when you pull a card from the Food Healing Oracle decks, you actually can eat that frequency of that body. If you want more clarity, which is our blueberry card, you can actually eat blueberries. And blueberries, since I'm also a food scientist as well, I mean, blueberries are excellent for eyes. So there's the physical, there's the emotional, there's the mental, and the spiritual. So that's kind of a long way of explaining frequency and how you can actually eat better. But in that instance that I told you in the story, if we're arguing and we're sitting there making a stir fry, we're actually putting that energy of argument into the food and you can feel it. And that's why sometimes people feel sick when they leave a restaurant. They don't know what's going on behind the door, what's happening in the kitchen. And so it's really important you stay at a high vibrational state while you're preparing food for the temple. So it always is as high vibrational as it can be. So you stay in a harmonious state of health.
And that makes sense to me. And, I love Dr. Moto's work because I think it really plays back into us too and how much we are made of water and when we're
Yeah,
saying these things to ourselves. So I think, putting blessings over our food, whether you pray or however you do it, but just being really grateful for what we're taking in and these nutrients
100%.
is so
Like just
important.
talk to your body. I mean, another great teacher is Dr. Bruce Lipton, and he talks in his teachings are epigenetics. And the understanding is that there's a consciousness in our cells. Like our cells are alive, they're not just floating around and splitting off. Like we can actually create an energy around the consciousness. So let's talk to ourselves and say, I'm creating health today, and I'm harmonizing my cells so they harmonize with the other cells, and we can create what we want for the body. So there's a real method to that. And you mentioned water before. One of my favorite teachings around food is how we should eat according to nature's five elements. So you mentioned that we're water, but we're earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. So let's just take, for instance, you mentioned water. Water is throughout our body in the blood. That's the liquid. That is what goes through. But let's just start with earth, would be our bones, and air would be our breath, and then earth, air, fire is the chi. It's the system. Every single part of our body, every reproductive system, cardiovascular, endocrine, every system in the body needs energy to burn calories, to really everything. So that's the fire. And we mentioned the water. So that's earth, air, fire, water. And then spirit is our soul. So we are nature and the five elements. And so when we're thinking about how to be conscious about eating, it would be eating in alignment with the elements. And so when you go into a grocery store or farmer's market, or hopefully maybe if some people can grow their own foods, we need to eat as simple as possible, as close to nature, which would be the outer aisles, the foods where they're most bioavailable, not the inner aisles where everything is preserved with 1,000 ingredients that are made in a lab. So eating according to elements is just as important. So I teach that in my books. I show that in the decks. You can pull a card and it can say what element's going on, or I got passed up for a promotion today at work, or I'm really mad. Someone took my parking spot. And you just, kind of starts this pattern of feeling bad that day. What foods will cool you down from being so angry? So you got all this fire going on. Well, what foods are watery to kind of bring you back into balance or bring you back into kind of a grounded state? So I teach that along with chakras and what foods really speak to feeding your chakras. That's actually another series of books I'll be coming out with this year.
Oh, that's
And it's
exciting.
really hugely important is to understand the chakra system. So that's kind of the teachings. And it's just really, I always say you'll never look at food the same way again once you start looking into my teachings, because it's poof, like, oh, I wonder why I'm craving artichokes, or I wonder why, like when you go to the store and you lock on to something, you can actually find out why that's happening, or possibly, what look at your day and then look at the food. It's people tell me all the time, they'll pull a card and say, I've been craving that, or or I just bought that last night.
Yeah,
And
I would agree with that because I do find that when I'm in the grocery store that I get drawn to different things. And sometimes it's the colors for me, to be honest.
yeah,
Like I
yeah,
love a good Swiss chard because, it's so vibrant green and the red.
yes.
Well, you can get the white one too, but I prefer the red and green just because I love the color in it, right? So I
Interesting.
get drawn into that kind of thing, and the fresher, obviously, the better. It's more appetizing when you look at it.
That's
That
true.
one is going to be my third deck, actually, Swiss chard. Hasn't been assigned yet. Give me another one. I could tell you if it's in my first or second deck.
Yeah, well, blueberries you mentioned, and it was funny because I actually had some of those today when I was at work. So,
Not surprising.
yeah.
Yeah, it's all plant-based, so it's going to be fruits, vegetables, herbs, nuts, or spices. So you can't say like, what do you have for a goat? I'm not going to have it in here. Here's what the blueberry card looks like since I just found it pretty quickly.
Oh,
Oh,
Blueberries.
that's
pretty.
great.
Very pretty.
Yeah, and if you think about blueberries, let's just take this for a second. It's the clarity card. So I always say there's 5 ways to read a card. So yes, you can immediately pull a card, and if you're asking a question, yeah, you're getting clarity. But as I mentioned before, the food itself are phenomenal for eyes. They really help, really prevent, eye disease. If you eat them every day, if you can, really good for you. But when we were talking about like the elements, this would be the air element. So like where do we get clarity when we're thinking about things? And so this is all about the air element is here is like really opening up that channel. And then sometimes it's the picture, there's a lot of blueberries there, and then there's a little bit of green. So
Mhm.
it's like you got to get clarity so you can kind of ground in. Green would represent Mother Earth, what you want to get clear on. Because for me, in order to manifest, you really need to have that clarity of vision. So this card would help you do that.
Yeah, and I can see that because with the green popping out like that, to me, it was like, oh, okay, you got to get clarity so you can grow new things into your life.
Totally. Exactly. See? You're a pro already. Well, now there's 123 other cards to learn.
Oh, that's amazing. Mom, you say one.
Oh, something to eat? Well, I'm really attached to raw vegetables and lately carrots. Okay.
Carrots.
Carrots really been a big magnet to me these last couple of weeks. Maybe you could explain that to me.
Yeah. I'm gonna see as I'm explaining, I'm gonna see if I could look and see if it's here. I grabbed a deck and I don't always know if all the cards are here. But carrots, very interesting. Carrots are empowerment. And so when I have people ask about carrots or they pull the carrots card, it's having to take a look at, are you feeling empowered in what you're doing, or has something been occurring that has created a sense of disempowerment? And where are we about stepping into more of an empowered state of being? And what I can tell you about the carrots, I'm not sure if I'm going to find it, um, is that carrots are a root vegetable. So they would be that earth element. And, coming straight up from the source, from the mother, is a great sense of ways to be empowered, is to be more in the divine feminine, which is it's empowering to receive more instead of being the giver all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
That,
Is any of that ringing true for you?
it does. Actually makes total sense to me.
Yeah,
So that also would connect to your chakra system as well, then, correct?
totally root chakra all the way,
Yeah.
like getting grounded. Like here we are in the beginning of a new year. Carrots is a really great card. And sometimes people choose their word of the year, and empowerment comes up a lot. Ooh, I found it. Yeah, here's what it looks like.
Oh,
Oh,
that's pretty.
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also empowerment is like, what can I do in 2025? We're still at the beginning of the year, and what can we do to just, or first quarter, I should say, but what can we do to become more empowered in your goals and your desires and what you want to do on the planet at this time? And things that it's actually a great way for you to say, when something comes in and you're not sure about it, does this empower me? Yes or no, get rid of it if it doesn't. Does it, if it's a yes, lean into it more and learn into it. Because this is saying this is just kind of your reading, is that there's a lot of choices, a lot of avenues, a lot of things that can be on your plate. And this is a good time for you to filter out what empowers you the most.
Wow, that's great. So does that have anything to do with, because I have a cold right now too? So is that also saying to me, eat more of those because that's going to help you to build those immunities that I need right now in order to get better? Sort
Yeah.
of thing. Would that also be incorporated in what you're saying there?
Yeah. Empower yourself to trust your knowing what you need to eat, what you need to take while you're not, while you're empowering yourself to get better. Vitamin
Okay.
A, absolutely. So you can actually open up the book and it's going to give you the spiritual message, but then there'll be a practical gift that tells you everything about that food and why you chose that. Because you could have given me, like 120 other foods, but when something comes up, that spirit saying like, pay attention. So I would be eating carrots and I would be, and if you can get purple carrots, which are the healthiest for you, but if you can get a variety of them would be great. But the beta carotene, vitamin A, everything in there is excellent right now to build in your body.
Beautiful. Thank
And
you.
for your eyes too. It's funny, the two of you, mom and daughter, choose the two foods that are for eyes. So,
Well,
so getting clear about your empowerment as a mother-daughter duo maybe have something to show, but this is all about seeing clearly because these are both the only two eye cards in the deck.
wow.
Wow,
Isn't that something? Wow.
it is. It is. Well, I have to say my blueberries were super delicious today. So,
Somebody was taking one of my certification courses and I did it live, like in person. Normally, I have people from all over the world taking it, so it's usually online, but this group happened to be all in person. And just before we broke for lunch, she kept saying to me, I was doing the module about chakras in food, and we were discussing how her throat chakra is closed and how she doesn't speak her truth. She doesn't express herself. She feels like people walk all over her. She comes in, people, I mean, it just goes on and on. You get the idea. She was just really telling me all about she can use some work in her throat chakra area. And then we go to break for lunch. And then she says, and by the way, totally unrelated, but I've been craving radishes for like 2 weeks. And what's the radish card? And I just laughed. And I said, well, our radish card is communicate. I mean, it was like amazing. Like she had been craving the food exactly. That's what she needed to do was communicate, and that's the food that she'd been craving. I mean, I see it all the time, hundreds, thousands of times that people are always craving the food, the card, the color of something that soul's trying to get their attention to improve.
that's interesting.
Um,
That which leads me to my next question, which is, so I prefer the Granny Smith, the green apples, because
Mhm.
they are a little bit more tart and stuff. And um, is there a difference in, like, say, the apples because of the colors of the apples and what they would work with your body with?
So, from a nutritional standpoint, red is always better. Like darker in nature is better because it's harder to create. And so they're more potent in terms of their, nutrients and phytochemicals and all that. So one of my nutrition and food healers used to always say, eat red, get ahead. Now, I'm not a fan so much of red apples, but I know they're the best. I'm also not a fan of black olives. I like green, but I know black's the best. I'm not and like everything on the darker end. So yeah, green's great, and tart and delicious. Red's best. And it kind of goes the way that spectrum everywhere. Like if you had a green pepper, red bell pepper, an orange, and a yellow, green would be the least, then yellow, then orange, and then red's the healthiest for you. And that's what I was saying to you earlier about this one, purple's best. Like the darker you go, the better. And I did happen to have the apples card sitting here, which I laughed because I saw it earlier and then it was still sticking out. And then you mentioned apples. I'm like, oh, okay. And you might
Like
want to,
you just do.
and you might be happy to know it's like the best card in the deck. It's our abundance card.
Wow, nice.
And you have green and red in the barrel, in the bucket. I don't know there.
I love it. I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just to, because I find it's very interesting what you kind of get drawn to. And I know, like, well, I used to go to the farmer's market a lot more, and I was always intrigued because, right, then you'd find like purple cauliflower and,
Hmm.
different things that you don't find in your grocery store. And, things that you can grow yourself is so to have it actually out of your garden or fresh. Like when we were in Arizona, I got to have a lemon like fresh off the tree. Oh my Lord. Like that was just
I know.
there's nothing the same as having that as buying a lemon in the grocery store. Like I
Well,
like
they
to
say,
have
yeah. Okay.
yeah, I like to have lemons, right? But yeah.
Lemons, I used to have a lemon and orange tree when I lived in California many moons ago. But yeah, the closer to earth and local, the better. You can taste quite a difference when you get foods that are local. That's why going to a farmer's market is great. And try the purple cauliflower, have the purple potato. In fact, there was a study done. I mean, if you heard of the blue zones, where they studied the 5 regions in the world, well, in Okinawa, which is one of the blue zones, their commonality of the centenarians who lived past 100, they were all eating purple sweet potatoes.
Wow.
So if you ever come across those, I wrote a book called Top Exotic Foods for Natural Healing. It's on Amazon. And it's just this little healing handbook. I took 10 of the most interesting and healthy foods that were in the two decks, including durian. It's a very interesting one. And what I did is I talked about these 10 foods, where to get them. No matter where you are, you can get them. And I gave some ideas on how to get them. And then not only did I talk about why these 10 foods are the tops, but then I did a little National Institute of Health little excerpts that show why these foods are good for cancer, diabetes, heart disease, you name it. And they are being studied. It's not like we're just saying, yeah, these foods are great and they're in this Oracle deck. I mean, people have been really using these foods, particularly in countries where all they have is their fields, like, the islands, like they don't have modern conveniences, like their pharmacy is out in their field. So these top exotic foods you can get no matter where you are, in some places easier than others. But with, online outlets and stuff, you can get a lot of them. And so, anyways, it's just a little book called Top Exotic Foods for Natural Healing. I think it's power packed produce from around the world for longevity and disease prevention.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think the healthier you eat and the more, you can get into those fruits and vegetables and things like that and, get those high vibrational foods, the better it is for us and for our bodies. And I think for myself, I know the healthier I eat, um, now when I do eat something that's processed, it's kind of like, ugh, I got a bellyache, right? Or it just like I'm just turned right off by it. So then it's like, okay, well, that's no longer in my thing. Can you talk a little bit about spices or herbs? Like what we should be like a way to sort of, because I know some people don't like vegetables and stuff because they're can be bland, especially when they're coming out of the superstore.
It can be boring. Yes, you have to. I mean, there's so many ways now to learn online, all the different recipes to make things nicer. But yeah, spices play a big role in it. We have a lot of spices in the two decks in the books that I talk about, particularly ones that are, cinnamon is one of the best spices out there. It's great for balancing the blood sugar, and that's huge. And I do think, I mean, a little salt is good for you and tasty. I don't think you can go, don't go overboard. Uh, some people can't do salt and some people can't do sugar. And then I also think there's balance in everything. And it's really looking at the body and learning how to work with it. And that's where being very present in checking in with your body, whether you muscle test or use a pendulum or just tune in. I have in the latest book, High Vibrational Wellness, I actually give a um, a little prayer and affirmation that gets you very present. Like, what does my body need right now? And it will tell you. It may want to have pepper, long pepper, short pepper, black pepper, red bell pepper. I mean, there's a lot of spices, oregano. I mean, I can go on, but spices, and that's why you see them made into essential oils. Spices make a huge difference, not only to flavor your food, but also to be catalyst for energy, to help bring healing to the body. And so I'm a big fan of herbs and spices. That's why this book has that. I mean, we have everything. We have saffron in there, and we have everything in there. Turmeric. Turmeric, of course, is known for a huge anti-inflammatory. And, we have ginger. I mean, it just goes on and on. And the best way, and that's why you have to learn to be intuitive. And I teach you intuitive food therapy is what does my body need right now? And you can actually pull a card, like we've been pulling cards, but you can actually say, what you can ask, what does my body need right now? Am I missing a mineral? Am I missing something that can really help me right now? Is there a vitamin that's going to help me with my bone strength and that sort of thing? And yeah, there is. There's something in all of these. And so, yeah, it's really important to be very in tune, like you said, when you lock in on something at the grocery store, even when you just open up your refrigerator and like, what's really speaking to me? See what's speaking to you. Is there something out chakra wise? Are you not feeling creative because you're not feeling powerful? And so look at what's, maybe a orange food because we're talking sacral chakra. And so you can look at foods for those colors of the chakras as well. So a long way of answering your question is that, yeah, there's a lot of spices and they too are in the deck to provide meaning of what they mean on the bigger level, because you have to realize food consumption is just one aspect to us. So if we're mind, body, spirit, and we need an overall balance. Food, and that's why I teach it just in this latest book. I think that's why it's become so popular around the world, High Vibrational Wellness, because it's not just the food that goes in the body, it's like how we feed our thoughts. Like, what is our mindset? How are we feeding everything we're thinking? And then also, how are we feeding our soul? Meditation, spirit, gatherings, community. And so when I did this book, it wasn't just all chefs and food coaches and food healers. I originally had that and it was called High Vibrational Eating. And then I thought, no, people are going to think this is a cookbook. So I started to think, well, wait a minute, there are so many more ways to feed yourself. So I gathered 25 people who can speak to the mind, body, spirit, feeding your thoughts, feeding your body, feeding your soul. And that's why this is very comprehensive, because you get 25 perspectives on how to do all that, from breath work to yoga to numerology to astrology to Reiki to food science. And that's the best way to eat on all levels, for
Yeah.
sure.
I
And
agree.
be okay. Give yourself permission if you do have a little junk food. That vibration we talked about earlier is like, don't eat it and say, I'm so mad at myself. I'm eating this. I'm so mad at almost if you're gonna do it, eat it and say, I'm just gonna transmute it. I love this. This is great. This isn't a everyday thing. I'm just gonna treat my body. And your body will respond and probably break it down a lot easier than like, oh my God, I can't believe I just ate that. I'm going to gain 10 pounds. I feel terrible. I'm going to be sick. You're already programming yourself up for failure. So
Yeah.
just like be more gentle with yourself.
Yeah, I think too, you're exactly right. And I believe in that so much of telling yourself these things. And and then I like to listen to my body too, right? Because I do have high blood pressure, so I am a little careful that I usually have Himalayan salt, but or Celtic
Yeah,
salt, right?
perfect.
But I did have chips the other day, and then I can tell you, I ate those chips and not very much with a little bit of dip. And then my heartbeat was like it was pounding out my chest. And I'm like,
Wow.
wow, okay, clearly something in there, maybe not the salt, maybe something, whatever, really activated that. So I was like, oh, okay, well, thank you for, really, thank you for telling me that that's
Getting
what
your
I
attention.
away.
It
Absolutely.
it's important to look with chips. In fact, I had some the other day too. But I what I liked about these chips is that they were made with avocado oil. And and then it was like salt and vinegar, but very important to look at the oils. That makes a huge difference in the body, especially when it comes to like free radicals and inflammation. But when you said earlier, when you said blood pressure, I heard celery. And so I don't know if you juice or do smoothies. I'm a huge juicer and smoothie blender. I have a book called Smoothies Nourishing Wisdom Beyond the Blend. And I took all the cards and made recipes because people are like, I want the nutrition, I don't want to figure it out. So I created 38 recipes, but celery is our vitality card, but it's often when people pull it, it has something to do with blood pressure.
No?
That I usually I don't always say when I'm giving a reading like eat all these foods. That sometimes in a reading I'll pick out what I'm intuitively feeling they should have, but immediately I heard celery for you.
Okay.
But
Perfect.
anyways,
Thank you.
juicing celery juice is great. I'm not a doctor, I'm not prescribing, but I've heard celery juice is very good for the body. And it is. I juice it a lot. And I'll have to go back and look. My other companies, I import Ayurvedic wellness teas from Nepal, and so we have a line of 13 teas. They're called Nourish Your Soul teas, and we have one called We have 13 of them. There's actually 50, but I've only imported 13 to can. I import for Canada and the US, but we have good blood pressure, we have good immunity, and we have all of them. But all Ayurvedic herbs that are like centuries old formulas. You asked about herbs. It's like these formulations are so good that even one of the ingredients, and there's like 7 to 9 herbs per box, but each one of them, like the science on it, it's incredible what it's doing for the body. So,
Um,
anyways, we'll have to talk offline about that. But yeah, I have a lot of teas that are on my website that all are herbs. That's why the formulator of the family in Nepal reached out to me and said, would you want to bring these to the US and Canada? Because they knew I was so into herbs, herbology, and food science, and how food really is medicine.
Yeah.
so where can people buy these
Um,
teas?
yeah, they're on my website, and the website is the initials are CIF, like Frank, CIFTofficial.com. And SIFT is the shorter version for Center for Intuitive Food Therapy.com. But
Okay.
yeah, there's an online website, and we ship to all over US and Canada.
Well,
Yeah, these teas are really good. And I really just want to share that people like you got that hit about trusting, like, okay, my body's telling me that's a no. And you can do that before you go into eating something. Like, is this in alignment for my body right now? Because maybe that moment it is, and yesterday it wasn't, or vice versa. I've told people, wow, yesterday I really felt I could have this, but today I didn't. I said, well, what happened between yesterday and today? Well, they had a huge argument with their spouse. Well, when you're arguing, you're creating inflammation in the body and you're creating intensity. So you need things that kind of bring that down. And if you eat the spicy food, you're fanning the flames, you're adding more to it. So it really is eating present in the moment. That's what conscious eating is all about, is where am I at right now? Do I need a lift, or do I need to be brought down? Do I need a ground? Do I need to open up? So in food will help you navigate that if you learn how to do it
Nice.
intuitively.
That makes sense. That makes so much sense. I love my teas. So,
Do you?
yeah.
Oh, you should go check them out. They are
Yeah.
amazing. They have been in this family in Nepal. They are organic and cultivated at the base of the Himalayas in these
Right.
farms. And then actually there's a backstory is that it's helping these farmers create income for their families because they're still, unfortunately, in those rural countries and those villages, trafficking humans are still accepted culture, and the family is like, you can actually make money a different way. You can
Nice.
make money by these farms, but these herbs are so pure, and so they're cultivated there, and they've been doing it. It's like a centuries old formula, and they've been number one through Asia and Europe. And it's only been about a year now that I was able to bring them to Canada and the US, and they're doing
Wow.
great. Yeah, exploding. We started
We're
off with
lucky.
one, good immunity, and people are like, I love this. I'm like, well, there's more.
Well, Kim and I drink tea a lot, so we will definitely look into it for you. Look it up because teas are good for you.
These are so good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that if more people realize that Mother Nature has had this, the clues are out there, and it's just a matter of like kind of opening up, right? Blueberry, getting the clarity.
Yeah.
If so many foods look like the organs. I mean, Mother Nature was smart. Like the eyes, carrots and the blueberries look like the eyes, and red bell peppers look like the chamber of the heart, and walnuts look like the brain. They're great for you. And
Yep.
so we have the wisdom and the knowledge. We just have
Nice.
to lean into it more.
absolutely,
Exactly.
we do. And I this has been so interesting. Like, well, Mom and I both just love food and love good food, and I love cooking. So I love trying new things. Like I bought fresh ginger and fresh turmeric to cook with, and I don't necessarily know what I'm doing. Usually I'm just like, okay, ancestors, just tell me how to cook this stuff and what I should put it in. And it's really interesting because usually my family is like, oh, this is really good. Right?
Well,
So
you know what? I love the fact that you just said turmeric and ginger. So ginger ginger in our world, in our language, is feelings. And turmeric is satisfaction. So it's like feeling satisfied when you're preparing a meal for yourself and others. Like you can actually make the meal, and then an affirmation is like, I am feeling satisfied. And you're actually saying that to the body as you incorporate those ingredients as you
Right.
eat them.
I love that. Well, I can't believe this hour is just like swimming right by. Can you tell
Yeah.
everybody where they can find you?
Yeah. So I'll just say it again. It's siftofficial.com. That's CIF like Frank T, siftofficial.com. And we also have a big Mighty Networks platform when this airs, and so you can learn about Mighty Networks. But if you go to siftofficial.com, you can learn all about me, my books. I also have some of my books on Amazon, and my decks are on the website, and teas, and a lot of my classes. I teach a lot of these courses. I teach actually about how food is related to tarot. So I have food paired up with the 22 major arcana. And then I have how the archangels have a relationship with food, and I teach about archangels and food. And I teach a zodiacs, what food for your zodiac sign. So I
Yes, I
have
was going to
lots
ask
of
you.
yeah, I have lots of different courses that people can take online and learn food in a much bigger representation of them.
Amazing. That's definitely amazing, and I think people should go out, and I need that book. So I'm also going to go get it right after this. Because
Aw,
I think it's just so important that we learn these things, right? And I find myself drawn, and I know mom does too, to finding out these things like with the Blue Zone and Dr. Lipton, and or like I just love that stuff because it's so
yeah.
I find it so empowering because it teaches us how to live in this world and be
Here,
healthier, right?
yeah. Well, use the code cherries, whoever's listening to this and you, that'll give you a discount. If you say it in this at checkout, it'll say, is there a code? Just use the word cherries. Cherries is our community card, and that'll give you a discount for anyone who's listening to this or
Well,
watching.
thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Yes.
So,
Thank
do you have
you.
anything coming up in this new year that you want to share with everyone, or what's going to be new
Yeah.
for you in 2025?
Well, one of the things I started doing for a few years now is gathering people who love my teachings and want to read cards and want to get readings. And I created Nourish Your Soul Retreats. And these retreats take a group of people, like 18 to 30, and we go to exotic locations around the world for a week. Some are really amazing. We've been to Costa Rica and Turkey and Greece. In upcoming here in July, we will be going to Taos, New Mexico. And then in October, taking a small group to Nepal and India. Actually, Nepal, Kathmandu, the area where the teas are uh, produced. And I take people, I call them sojourns into wellness. And there's always some sort of food component, whether it's a restaurant or a private chef or a cooking class. And we're actually incorporating my teaching. So Nourish Your Soul Retreats. We are doing them, feeding the mind, feeding the body, feeding the spirit. And so it's a week of readings and healings and really getting to know the community. People from all over the world gather. So yes, Nourish Your Soul Retreats is one big part. So I have a few coming up um, this year, and then more will be announced for 2026.
Perfect. And people can
Yeah.
find out about those on your
Yeah,
website.
they're on the website as well. And so, yeah, there's, and then on there, I think you could join my mailing list, and then I always let you know what's coming up because they all fill. So come on if you feel interested in learning more, or you're like, hey, I've always wanted to go to blank. The more I get people writing me, then when I see there's enough of an interest and it interests me as well, I kind of look into that country, but we stay pretty busy traveling.
That's
Good.
wonderful.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful. Well, if you had a final thought to leave with everybody, what would it be?
Make things more simple than they are more simple than it has to be. I think the confusion is everyone telling you what to eat, weight loss, what shot to take, what food, what diet to be on. And there's something for everybody. And if you just kind of pause, be more of that divine feminine, receive and listen, trusting that gut, that real cliche of trusting your gut is real. Let that solar plexus kind of open and energize your space, and just listen. The answers will be revealed, what you should eat and what will feed you best. Doesn't matter that they're eating this and they're eating that. What do you need right now to uplift your soul? And the answers will be given.
Beautiful.
Wonderful. Yes. Well,
Love it.
thank you so much for spending time with us and sharing all your wealth of knowledge with both of us and
You
our
bet.
listeners. And we'd love to have you back to share more knowledge because I just think it's important that this information is getting out to the world. And, that's Mums and my mission is to get this information for people to be able to live a better and a more authentic, happy life. So.
Yes.
Beautiful. Thanks for what you're doing, both of you.
Thank
I hope
you
to
for
see
you.
you again, and maybe you're going to tell me you're drinking my tea.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Gonna try it out for sure.
Yes.
Well,
Wonderful.
blessings to you and to everyone listening. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, and everybody else, we will see you the next time.
You better.